What up? Uncle Benji here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we have a little bit of a detour of a video. If you've been following along for the channel, the very first video that I did for the channel was a longer video where I talked about all the vinyl purchases I made in the year 2025 for hip hop. Most of them were 2025 releases. There was a handful in there that was just records that I got for the first time, new represses mainly on vinyl, not like just stuff that I purchased, but stuff that just got released last year. And when I made this video, I realized there were some records that I left out. You know, just searching through the collection, there are some things that I forgot about, unfortunately. And I said I would come back and talk about some of those records in a follow-up video. I still have some records from 2025 that I'm waiting to arrive to ship to me yet. I don't know when all of it will arrive though, and I just wanted to do another one of these videos because I feel like I have a decent amount of things to talk about today. So we're gonna get right started. The first album that I left off of this, that I don't know why I did, was this album from Niontay. The album is called For the Love of Money. And this album is from one of the best artists working right now. And I've been a fan of Niontay from the first time I heard him, which was on a track with Earl Sweatshirt and Mike that was on his EP that he put out. I think it was Demon Muppy, and like just an incredible track and video. When that dropped, I immediately became a fan. It was like, man, I need to tap in with this guy. I found that he had an album that had come out before this one that I was a huge fan of. And then after this came out last year, he released another album at the end of the year that's incredible too. But this is his magnum opus to this point. He self-produces a lot of this as well. And Niontay is one of those guys, like you hear him on a track for the first time, nobody you've ever heard sounds like Niontay. He has a very unique drawl and way of rapping from, you know, places he's been from. He grew up in Florida, also grew up in Milwaukee, and lives in New York. So there's, the slang is all over the place. The accent is all over the place, but you listen to him and you're like, man, I need to listen more and hear what this guy is saying, because he just has such a unique way to slipper through tracks and make statements and make you want to, like, man, I want to understand more rap outside what's up my lane, because this guy's saying some stuff, and I cannot wait to hear what more comes from him. He's a prolific artist. Like I said, he's a producer too, incredible producer. Some of the beats he makes on here, like, and he has some great beats from lots of people, but his beats are my favorite on here. So this is an album that, man, if you're not already familiar with Niontay, I saw him perform at the Earl show in Chicago this year. Incredible performance. Just love this guy and cannot wait to see what else he has coming, because I'm sure he's got a lot of work in the pipeline. The next album we're going to talk about here was an album that was put out on Backwood Studios, my favorite label last year. It's from FOHDH Matthew and the producer Wino Willy. It's called Matthew Gets Drunk Off Cheap Wine and Prefers Ja Rule La Rose 1945. This is an artist, FOHDH Matthew, that I was not aware of before I heard this album, but he immediately endeared himself to me. I lived in Philly for several years when I was going out to school out there in the early 2000s, and there's just something about Philly MCs that's always going to be special to me. Guys that just rap for the love of rap. You're trying to prove yourself to the people around you, and you could tell from Matthew he's one of those guys that is about this rapping thing, and the beats that he has from Wino Willy are, you know, just really an incredible soundscape here. Wino Willy's beats are always psychedelic and really cool, but there's really woozy, pushed to the point of almost breaking apart throughout this album. It's, you know, a really addicting listen and really different sound from anything else you're going to hear on Backwoods. This was also a collab release on Grillchi Party, which is Mark Specht, another MC who used to do a lot of work with Backwoods, but now has his own label, an incredible label that puts out a lot of work. So it's great to see them collaborating with artists. Also, the artwork photography on here was all done by the amazing Alexander Richter, Backwoods' like main man for album artwork, among many others, but he's been with them from the start, and just iconic photography across so many Backwoods releases. The next album we have to talk about is from producer Asterisk. The album is called No School. And this album is like a lot of the albums that were awesome last year, producer albums featuring a lot of great MCs. And I'll talk a little bit about Asterisk first because he's got a really unique story. He's kind of an older guy like me, but new to producing hip hop. Has been making music for many years, multi-instrumentalist, electronic music that he made in the early 2000s. But at a certain point here in the last several years, he decided that he wanted to make hip-hop production and get in touch with some of the artists that he had become fans of in the scenes that he had been studying since he got back immersed into hip-hop. And man, he did a great job getting the various artists that he got together on this album. Some of my favorite young artists in the scene. I mean, you got Jesse the Tree and Monzy the Terrible on a track. You got a track with Sleep Sinatra. You got a track with Jay Cinema and Real G. You got Def C on here. You got a track with Lungs and Hester Valentine, like two of my favorite MCs out there right now from New York. Video Dave. You got No Sage from New Kingdom and Open Mike Eagle on a track together. Rapman Gavin, another amazing MC from South Africa that I'm a big fan of. You got Nah Really and Crops just put out a great album on Steel Tip Dove's record label. And then you got like Craig G and Micah 9 on here as well. So, you know, a lot of talent on this album. And, you know, Asterisk has a very eclectic sound. Like I said, he's a multi-instrumentalist. So there's a lot that you're going to hear on this album that you're not going to hear on other albums. It's not traditional hip-hop production. It's very layered and, you know, really you unearth new things every time you listen to it. And that's been an album that has been growing on me the more I listen to it. So check out everything that Asterisk is putting out. He also has a record shop in Vermont where he lives. So multi-talented guy, has his hands in a lot of things, and I'm definitely locked in for what he has coming in the future. I mentioned on that last one, it had Lungs on there. Lungs is absolutely one of my favorite artists in the world right now, and this is his group Lungs and Phiik. Together, these guys like are just spectacular MCs. Lungs is a great producer as well, but this project, Carrot Season, is produced by Olusegun, who's an amazing producer and really challenges them to kind of step out of their box and do some different things. But I've been tapped in with Lungs since his Lone Sword tape first came out. I forget what year that came out, 19 or 20 or something like that. So it's been a while that I've tapped in with these guys, and everything they put out, I buy. It's all incredible stuff. I mean, they work with a lot of great artists. You got, you know, Michael Christmas on here. You got a song with Homeboy Sandman. You got YL on here. You got a Kai Solo on here. You got Doof, one of my favorite artists who I've mentioned on the channel. Fatboy Sharif, another artist I've mentioned on the channel. You know, so a lot of amazing artists on this thing in collaboration with Taze Grip, who's, you know, a great collective out there in New York. And Lung and Phiik are two of the artists that are top of my list of guys I want to see live right now. So I'm going to try to make that happen sometime this year. Big fan of what they got going on. Make sure you're tapped into them. The next record is from a guy that I've talked about on this channel before. I've said I have more of his vinyl than anybody else in my collection, and this is Serengeti. This is a remix album of a fantastic album that he put out with child actor Ajai 2. This is Serengeti 2 Remixed, and it's produced by Aaron Thrifty and Open Eye. Put out on the Othar label. Another really cool thing about this remixed album is it has vocal clips throughout this album from Billy Woods, kind of like a narrator. And Getty and Billy Woods have worked together in the past. Not a ton of recent stuff together, but, you know, definitely guys that are in touch. And I will say I do have some inside baseball that these vocal clips on here, well, they sound like things like Woods easily could have written himself. They are not written by Woods. So he is a narrator, a hired gun narrator on here. They're not written by Serengeti either. I am not going to say who is written by, but I do know who the little clips on there were written by. But this is, you know, an awesome remix of an awesome album. Like, you really hear kind of the end of the Ajai story, or stuff really falling apart with the Ajai character and his wife just she's really going through it with the drops that he's dealing with and how he cannot just take his attention away from all the drops and the storage lockers he's got full of all of the clothing that he has amassed, and he can't even go on vacation and focus on anything because it's all about the drops. So just the crazy world that Serengeti sets up in his, world, especially with Kenny Dennis and Ajai. If you love that kind of stuff, definitely check out that remix album. And we're going to continue here with more Serengeti. This is the most recent thing that I've added to my collection. It just got put out recently. Look at the picture of young Serengeti there on the back. But this is one of his very first albums. It was made like back in 2002. It was made on a record label, F5. DJ Crucial produced all of this. And this was also during an era where he was like doing work with MF Grimm. There was another album, Gasoline Rainbows, that was recorded around this time too, through MF Grimm's label, Day by Day. So you really see a different side of Serengeti early here, like where it's a little more straightforward than later stuff in his career. Like I wouldn't necessarily call anything Serengeti does straightforward, especially as this an album that came out in 2002. There wasn't a lot that sounded like it, but he's really like rapping on this thing. It's his own Serengeti way, but I just listened to this album for the first time in a while before I recorded this video, and man, it's an incredible album. One of the really cool things about it, and the packaging, it comes with this booklet that has all the lyrics. And I mean, this is one album. Just look at this thing. It has like 23 songs, and like look at the amount of lyrics that Serengeti is writing, like just for this one single album. Before anybody like was a fan of him or really knew who he was, this man Serengeti was like just putting in a ridiculous amount of work. And when you listen to this album in retrospect, especially as me as a guy who's been a fan of him for a long time, it's so easy to tell how much this guy loves the art form, how much he put into these early albums. Like, it's just insane. Like, and people, I understand people that take their music real seriously and are just coming up and they're just putting out their first albums and maybe EPs, and they have 10, 12 songs on them, and they're like 1 or 2 verse songs, because songs in nature are just shorter now in rap than they used to be. Like, this guy was making 20 plus songs with like 3 verses, super long verses, like really and this isn't like rap, just like I said, it was rapping, but when you see the references and the work, when you read these verses and the level that he's putting into it and the amount of his life that he puts into it, all that he was going through with substance abuse, getting thrown in jail, stuff with girlfriends, stuff with dealing with your mental condition, your parents, all this stuff comes out through his lyrics, and he's just trying to rap and just do this thing and find a way to maybe make a living off of this. And it's really incredible to listen to when you see where his career is at now, the level of prolific artist that he is, the amount of albums that he puts out. It's like you see this work from an early album when he was a complete unknown. It's like, oh, it kind of makes sense why, this guy's wired the way he is, that he can just go and go and go and go, and is just so obsessive and so into just creating art. That's Serengeti. We talked about MF Grimm there on the last one, because he did work with Serengeti, did work on his label, and this is an MF Grimm album that I just got recently on vinyl for the first time. This has been put out on vinyl, and this release is really special to me. I'll also show you, I have the CD. This originally came out in 2005, the Scars and Memories CD, and this was a super cool thing to have back in 2005, because these MF Grimm songs, most of them were recorded in the 90s, a lot of them in the early 90s. So it was like one of these time capsule albums where, you know, me being a huge fan of MF Grimm in 2005, like he was absolutely one of my favorite artists on the planet at that time. His last several albums, like I was obsessed with. And then I got a window into everything he did before that. When you really hear like, man, this guy rhymed with Tupac way back in the day and influenced him, you know, influenced Biggie, influenced a lot of these people in the early 90s. Like I'm talking like 90, 91, 92, when he was going around to rap battles and competitions and known as the Grim Reaper, and, you know, got involved in street stuff after that, was on tracks with Kool G Rap on the 456 album in 95, which is where I first heard MF Grimm. So I'd already known that like he had some history during that time, but listening to that album, it really like kind of blows my head open, like everything that's on this album, because especially hearing him, you know, he got shot and paralyzed and ended up in jail for a couple years. And you can tell him rhyming before he was in the wheelchair was a little different experience. He had a little more oomph to his voice, and truly to me was one of the best MCs on the planet. I mean, you can listen to the verses on Kool G Rap 456 and you can understand what I'm talking about. Could have been a much different history for Grimm if he didn't end up getting shot. I wonder where he would be today at this point. But, you know, this album is really cool to listen to. On the CD, it has all these little skits in between the songs where you hear interviews with Grimm, and he talks about, you know, what his life was like in these periods in between tragic events, and the, you know, kind of setting the stage for how these songs were made. So this is something that, you know, I never knew if this would ever get pressed up on vinyl. Having a couple albums I showed in that first video, his Downfall of Iblis album that got pressed up on vinyl. So some of these European labels are doing this. Same way with the Serengeti album, where I'm getting some of this stuff from years ago that, you know, had never really been on vinyl, especially in those kind of packages. So those are really special albums to me to have a chance to buy those things. And here we come back to another artist who's been on the channel before, and none other than Mach-Hommy. And this one, as most Mach-Hommy records, wasn't cheap, but it was definitely one that when I saw it, I had to get it. It's never been pressed on vinyl. Might be one of the last Hommy records from the classic era that I end up purchasing. Maybe Dump Meister, if he ever puts that one out, that would be one I would definitely purchase. But this is a fabulous album, again, from that crazy 2017 run. I think it was, I forget what time of the year it came out, but it was definitely in the back half of the year, or at least like August on, I believe, maybe July. But he'd already put out like 5 or 6 projects like at this time. So this album was just adding on to all the amazing albums he was putting out. A lot of people now rate this as like their favorite Mach-Hommy album. I'm not one to go that high with it, but it's definitely a great album. Has some words on the inside, and I'm not going to say who these words are for. You know, you can make your own speculation online for any of that, but, you know, this is definitely one that is really cool to own. Mach-Hommy Dump God Hommy Edition. And then the last thing we're going to talk about today, it's very apropos right now that we're talking about that, and this is the artist 454, because he just put these out recently. I just got him in the mail within the last week. Fast Trax, and this was a box set where he put out, you could get these individually, and I think you can still get them on his website, or you could get the box set that came with Fast Trax 1, 2, and Fast Trax 3. And 454 is an artist that's, I mean, one of my definitely top 5 artists working right now. I've been obsessed since I got into him. And the way I got into him was from a guy, Earl Sweatshirt, that I've said on previous videos, turns me on to a lot of music. Earl had an interview somewhere on YouTube. They asked him what albums he was listening to, what artists he was listening to, and 454 was one of the main artists he listened. And this album here, Fast Trax 3, was my entry point into 454. 454 produces all of his own music. He raps, he sings, he has family on all of his albums. very tight-knit. His music is so pure, like it's joyous. I can dance to it. Melodies on his music, drum patterns, everything he puts into it is groovy in a way that not much music is in 2026. And these albums are really cool to own because while this one's been out on streaming for, since I got into him, these first two, Fast Trax 1 and Fast Trax 2, previously haven't been on streaming, still not that I know of as of now. And I was only really able to listen to them like on YouTube. So they're not really albums I'm all that familiar with. I haven't listened to that much. And now I'm so thankful that I have them on vinyl so I can listen to these albums. And I say it's very apropos because I'm about to see 454 live for the first time in Chicago in like 3 nights. And I cannot remember the last time I was this excited to see a concert. I'm a guy that likes to get down at a concert if it's music to dance to, and it will definitely be the case at this 454 show up at Shuba's in Chicago. It's cold here in the Midwest, but it's going to be warm in that room. We're going to be getting down. We're going to be having a lot of fun, and I'm so glad to have this 454 vinyl. I had one previously, the only vinyl he put out previously. All of us 454 fans cannot wait till he inevitably puts out his album Cast of a Dreamer on vinyl. That was my favorite album of the year 2024. Just an absolute masterpiece, one of the best albums of the 2020s. And if you're not hip to 454, even if, fast, danceable, almost like, to me it's like listening to Young Thug or Future, but a more just pure, joyous, no negativity version of those kind of artists. Guy used to be a pro skateboarder and is now parlaying it all into music, and just beautiful stuff to listen to. And I cannot wait to see him live. So get tapped into 454. But that's the video for today, y'all. It's some of the stuff that I've added to the collection recently. 2025 albums I left out of the last one, or just purchases that have come in since that last video that I did on additions to the collection. So till next time, y'all, Uncle Benji, peace out.